Queen Tsar Thala stood on the highest tower of her crystal palace, watching her world burn. The sight below filled her with a cold terror she had never known before. Valdris Prime, the jewel of her empire, was dying. The queen was tall and elegant, like all her people. Her skin had a blue glow that came from living under two suns. She wore robes made from star silk that changed colors with her emotions. Right now, they were deep black with flashes of red, fear, and anger. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever set foot on Valdris Prime. The planet was protected by energy shields that could stop weapons powerful enough to destroy suns. The Valdrian army was 10 million strong. Each soldier was genetically improved to be faster, stronger, and smarter than any natural being. But none of that mattered now. The Devourers had come 3 days ago. They appeared from the darkness between stars like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships were huge and black, shaped like enormous insects. They moved in perfect formation, millions of them blocking out the stars. At first, the Valdrians thought victory would be easy. Their weapons could punch holes through planets. Their shields had never been broken. They were the most advanced race in the galaxy. Or so they believed. The Queen remembered the first battle clearly. Admiral Kexval had been confident when he led the fleet to meet the invaders. "We will destroy them in minutes, Your Majesty," he had said with a smile. The admiral was dead now. So was his entire fleet. The Devourers were different from any enemy the Valdrians had faced. They learned from every attack. When the Valdrians fired energy weapons, the Devourers adapted and became immune. When they used gravity bombs, the enemy ships absorbed the power and grew stronger. Worse, the Devourers consumed everything. They ate metal, rock, even the energy from the planet's core. Wherever they landed, they built more of themselves. They turned trees into metal. They converted animals into machines. They were turning Valdris Prime into another Devourer ship. The Queen's advisor, General Mordine, approached from behind. His footsteps echoed on the crystal floor. "Your Majesty, we have lost the northern continent. The enemy has consumed the entire landmass and converted it into a construction facility." Tsar Thala did not turn around. She continued watching the red glow in the distance where her cities had once stood. "How long do we have? How long do we have? Our scientists estimate 6 days, maybe 7 if we sacrifice the outer districts to slow their advance." The Queen finally turned to face him. General Mordine was old, even for a Valdrian. He had fought in the last great war 200 years ago. His face was covered in scars from that ancient conflict, but now he looked afraid. "What about the other species?" she asked. "Have any of our allies responded to our calls for help?" The general's expression grew darker. "The Krillian Federation sent their regrets. They say their fleet is too far away to arrive in time. The Synthetic Collective acknowledged our message but stated they cannot spare resources. The Ethereals sent philosophical condolences but no ships." Tsar Thala felt her hope cracking like thin ice. The Valdrian Empire had been proud and selective about their friendships. They only spoke to other advanced species. They ignored the primitive races that still fought with crude weapons and metal ships. "What about the emergency database? Have we contacted everyone?" General Mordine hesitated. "There are thousands of other species, Your Majesty. But they are all classified as primitive or irrelevant. Our computers show most of them have not even left their home systems. Some are still fighting with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons." The Queen looked back at the burning horizon. In the distance, she could see more Devourer ships landing. Each one was the size of a mountain. They moved with terrible purpose, spreading across her world like cancer. "We have been proud, General. Perhaps too proud. Your Majesty, contact them all. Every species in our database, even the primitive ones." The general's eyes widened. "My Queen, that would be thousands of messages, and most of these species have nothing to offer us. Some of them are barely past the Stone Age." Tsar Thala turned to face him fully. Her robes flashed bright red now, showing her determination. "General, in 6 days, the Valdrian Empire will be extinct. Our technology, our culture, our people, all of it will be consumed and turned into more devourers. If there is even the smallest chance that some unknown species has a solution we have not considered, we must try. The general bowed low. It will be done, Your Majesty. As he walked away, the queen remained on her tower. Below her, she could see streams of refugees fleeing the northern districts. Valdrian families carried what little they could save. Children cried for pets that had been left behind. Elders struggled to keep up with the younger people. The queen had always believed her people were special. They were the first species in this part of the galaxy to discover faster-than-light travel. They were the first to master genetic engineering. They were the first to build weapons that could crack planets, but the Devourers made all of that meaningless. They were older, more advanced, more ruthless. They had probably destroyed dozens of civilizations before arriving at Valdris Prime. The thought made her sick. How many other species had sent desperate messages asking for help? How many had the Valdrians ignored because they seemed primitive or unimportant? A new explosion lit up the northern sky. The queen watched as another city died. Soon, the Devourers would reach the capital. Soon, they would climb this very tower and consume everything she had ever loved. But perhaps, somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone would answer their call. Perhaps some species they had overlooked would have an idea, a weapon, or a strategy that could save them. The queen stood alone on her crystal tower, watching her empire fall, and hoped for a miracle from the stars. The royal communications chamber hummed with activity. Hundreds of Valdrian technicians worked at crystal consoles that glowed with soft blue light. They had been awake for 2 days straight, sending messages across the galaxy. Dark circles lined their eyes, and their hands shook from exhaustion and fear. Queen Zarthala walked between the workstations, watching her people try to save their civilization. The chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of energy shields and armor. But even here, they could feel the vibrations when Devourer weapons struck the surface. "Status report," she commanded. Chief Communications Officer Veltara looked up from her station. Her face was pale with worry. "We have sent emergency broadcasts to over 8,000 species, Your Majesty. The message has been translated into every known language and transmitted on all frequencies." The Queen nodded. The message had been simple and direct. "This is Queen Zarthala of Valdris Prime. Our world faces extinction from an enemy beyond our capability to defeat. We humbly request immediate military assistance from any civilization capable of providing aid. We offer our entire technological database in exchange." It had been the hardest message she had ever authorized. For a Valdrian royal to ask for help was shameful. For her to offer their sacred knowledge to primitive species was unthinkable. But with her world dying around her, pride was a luxury she could not afford. "How many responses have we received?" the queen asked. Veltara's shoulders slumped. 143, Your Majesty. Most are from species we already contacted directly. "Show me." The officer activated a holographic display. Names and messages appeared in the air, floating like ghosts. The queen read each one with growing desperation. The Krillian Federation had sent a formal response. "The Krillian Naval Command regrets to inform the Valdrian Empire that our fleet is currently engaged in operations in the outer spiral. Our nearest ships are 47 days away at maximum speed. We extend our sympathies and hope for your survival." The synthetic collective was more direct. "This unit acknowledges your request for assistance. Analysis indicates a 0.003% probability of successful intervention given current resource allocation. We cannot justify the expenditure. We will preserve your cultural data for future study." The ancient ethereals had sent something that might have been poetry. "In the dance of cosmic forces, all matter must return to the void. We sense your pain across the stars but cannot alter what fate has written in gravity's song." One by one, the queen read similar messages. Too far away. Too busy with their own problems. Too weak to help. Too philosophical to care. "What about the primitive species?" she asked. Veltara looked uncomfortable. Most have not responded, Your Majesty. We believe many do not have the technology to receive our transmissions properly. Others may not understand the urgency of the situation. The Queen felt her hope dying like a flame without air. She had gambled everything on this desperate plan. If the most advanced species in the galaxy could not help them, what chance did primitive cultures have? Another vibration shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling as a devourer weapon struck somewhere above them. The Queen could hear her people crying out in fear. Your Majesty, called another technician from across the room. We are receiving a transmission from Sector 9871. It's strange. Strange how? The technician looked confused. The message is coming from a species called the Zephyrians. They say they understand our situation and wish to help, but they can only send thoughts and prayers. Queen Zarthala stared at the message. Thoughts and prayers. What good were thoughts and prayers against an enemy that could devour stars? More messages arrived throughout the day. A fish-like species offered to compose a song of mourning for the Valdrian people. A race of crystalline beings said they would meditate on the tragedy. Several primitive cultures promised to light ceremonial fires in honor of Valdris Prime. All useless. All meaningless gestures that would not save a single Valdrian life. The Queen retreated to her private chambers within the communications complex. The room was small and simple. Nothing like her grand palace above. She sat on a basic chair and put her head in her hands. Outside her door, she could hear her staff working frantically. They were still sending messages, still hoping for a miracle. But the Queen knew the truth. They were alone. General Mordine entered without knocking. His face was grim. Your Majesty, I have an update from the surface. The Devourers have consumed half the planet. Our remaining forces are falling back to the capital city. How long do we have? 3 days. Maybe 4. The Queen stood and walked to a small window. Through the thick crystal, she could see the underground city where millions of Valdrians had taken shelter. Children played in the corridors while their parents worked to maintain life support. They still believed their queen would save them. Perhaps we should consider surrender, the general said quietly. The Devourers do not take prisoners, General. They only consume. Then we prepare for the end with dignity. Before the Queen could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the complex. Veltara's voice echoed through the speakers. Your Majesty, we have received an unusual transmission from Sector 7739. The Queen and General hurried back to the communications chamber. Veltara was standing at her console with a puzzled expression. What is it? The Queen demanded. A response from a species calling themselves humans from a planet called Earth. The transmission is very primitive. They're using basic radio waves instead of quantum communication. But the message is different. Show me. The holographic display activated. A simple text message appeared in basic galactic standard. Valdris Prime. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We hear you. Help is on the way. Hold the line. The Queen stared at the message. It was shorter than all the others. No poetry, no philosophy, no excuses. Just a promise. What do our files say about this species? She asked. A technician quickly accessed the database. Very little, Your Majesty. They are classified as a nuclear-age civilization with limited space presence. No recorded military victories. No advanced weaponry. No mention of significant technological development. How far away are they? 17 days at maximum Valdrian fleet speed. But according to our scans, their ships are much slower. If they actually sent help, it would take them at least 30 days to arrive. The Queen felt her heart sink again. Even if these humans were sincere, they would arrive to find nothing but devourer ships, consuming the remains of Valdris Prime. But something about the message stayed with her. The tone was different from all the others. There was no fear in it. No doubt. Just a simple promise. Help is on the way. Perhaps it was foolish to hope. Perhaps these humans were just another primitive species that did not understand the situation. But in the growing darkness that surrounded her dying world, Even the smallest light was worth protecting. "Send a response," she ordered. "Tell them we will try to hold on." The warning sirens screamed across what remained of Valdris Prime's capital city. Queen Zarthala rushed through the underground corridors toward the command center, her robes flowing behind her like liquid silver. 2 days had passed since the human message, and she had almost forgotten about it. The Devourers had consumed 80% of her planet. The beautiful crystal cities were gone, turned into twisted metal structures that birthed more enemy ships. Only the capital remained, protected by the last functioning shield generator. "Your Majesty," General Morden called out as she entered the command center. "We have ships approaching from the outer system. We have ships approaching. We have ships approaching. We have ships approaching. We have ships approaching. We have ships approaching from the outer system." The Queen's heart leaped. Reinforcements? Who sent them? According to their identification signals, the humans. Zarthala stopped walking. The humans had actually come. Despite the impossible distance, despite having no advanced technology, they had somehow arrived in only 2 days instead of 30. "Show me," she ordered. The main display activated, showing the space around Valdris Prime. The Queen gasped at what she saw. Devourer ships filled the area like a swarm of metal insects. There were millions of them, each one the size of a mountain. They moved in perfect patterns, consuming the planet's moons and converting them into more vessels. And approaching them was the human fleet. The Queen felt her hope crumble into dust. There were only 50 human ships. 50 against millions of devourers. Each human vessel was tiny compared to the enemy. They looked crude and primitive, built from metal and ceramic instead of the energy matrices used by advanced civilizations. "This is their entire fleet?" she asked in disbelief. A communications officer looked up from his station. "We are receiving a transmission from the human admiral. Put it through." The display changed to show a human face. Queen Zarthala had never seen one before. The creature was small and soft-looking, with brown skin and dark eyes. She wore a simple uniform without the elegant decorations favored by Valdrian officers. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force," the human said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We are here to assist with your devourer problem." The Queen found her voice. "Admiral Chen, I am grateful that you have come, but I fear there has been a misunderstanding. The enemy numbers in the millions. Your fleet is very small." The human smiled, showing white teeth. It was an expression the Queen did not understand. "Your Majesty, we appreciate the concern, but we've dealt with impossible odds before. We just need you to do exactly what we say, when we say it. Can you do that?" General Morden stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, our sensors show that your weapons are chemically based. The Devourers have already adapted to every form of energy weapon in our arsenal. Your primitive armaments will have no effect." Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. "General, that's exactly what we're counting on." Before anyone could ask what she meant, the human fleet moved into action. The Queen watched in fascination as the 50 ships split into smaller groups. They did not attack the massive Devourer fleet directly. Instead, they moved in strange patterns that seemed to have no logic. "What are they doing?" the Queen whispered. The answer came moments later. The human ships began firing, but not at the Devourers. They fired at empty space, at asteroids, at their own defensive positions around the planet. "They're destroying our orbital defenses," a technician shouted in horror. "No," Admiral Chen's voice came through the speakers. "We're denying resources to the enemy. Every satellite, every space station, every piece of metal floating around this planet is material they can use to build more ships. We're taking that away from them." The Queen watched in amazement as the humans systematically destroyed everything in orbit around her world. They blew up communication satellites, mining stations, even escape pods filled with Valdrian civilians. "Stop," she commanded. "There are people in those pods." "Already evacuated them," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "My Marines picked up every escape pod 3 minutes ago." We don't leave people behind. Indeed, the Queen could see smaller human ships carefully collecting the escape pods, even as the larger vessels continued their destructive work. But this made no sense as a military strategy. The humans were giving up the high ground, destroying defensive positions, removing any advantage they might have had. The Devourer fleet began to respond. Hundreds of their ships broke away from the planetary assault to engage the human fleet. The Queen expected to see the primitive human vessels destroyed in moments. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships scattered like leaves in a storm. They moved in patterns that defied military logic, zigzagging randomly through space. Some ships flew directly toward the enemy, others fled in apparent panic. A few began spinning wildly as if their pilots had gone insane. The Devourers, programmed to predict enemy movement based on logical tactics, found themselves firing at empty space. Their adaptive algorithms, designed to counter sophisticated military strategies, could not process the chaotic behavior of the human fleet. "What kind of military training is this?" General Mordin demanded. Admiral Chen heard the question through the communication link. "The kind you get when you spend 10,000 years fighting each other instead of exploring space peacefully. Admiral, we need you to drop your planetary shields in exactly 30 seconds. "What?" the Queen gasped. "The shields are the only thing protecting the capital. Trust me." The Queen looked at her general, then at her staff. Every face showed the same expression of confusion and terror. Dropping the shields would expose the last million Valdrians to certain death, but what choice did they have? The humans were their only hope. However small and strange that hope might be. "Do it," she ordered. The shields flickered and died. Immediately, Devourer ships dove toward the exposed capital city like vultures sensing carrion, but the humans were ready. As the enemy ships entered the atmosphere, human vessels that had been hiding on the planet's far side suddenly appeared. They flew directly into the path of the diving Devourers, not to stop them, but to collide with them. "Suicide attacks," General Mordin breathed. "They're deliberately ramming the enemy ships." The Queen watched in horror and fascination as human pilots steered their vessels into certain death. But each collision sent a Devourer ship spinning out of control, crashing into its neighbors, creating chaos in their perfect formations. Within minutes, the organized Devourer assault became a confused mess of colliding ships and confused algorithms. The enemy's adaptive intelligence began overloading as it tried to process patterns that made no sense. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the speakers again. "Phase 1 complete. Your Majesty, I need you to evacuate all civilians to the deepest underground shelters. Things are about to get very loud." The Queen stared at the display. Half the human fleet was gone, destroyed in their own desperate attacks. But somehow, impossibly, they had thrown the mighty Devourer armada into complete disarray. "Admiral," she said quietly, "your people are dying for strangers." "Why?" There was a pause before the human answered. "Your Majesty, that's just what we do. Now please, get your people to safety. We're just getting started." Deep in the underground command bunker, Queen Zarthella watched something that should have been impossible. The main display showed the space above her dying world, where 25 remaining human ships were fighting millions of Devourers. And somehow, the humans were winning. "I don't understand what I'm seeing," General Mordin muttered, staring at the tactical display. "This violates every principle of warfare." Admiral Chen's image appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, the Queen could see human crew members working frantically. Sparks flew from damaged equipment, and the Admiral's uniform was torn and blood-stained. "Your Majesty," Chen said, "I need you to shut down your remaining power plants. All of them. That will kill everyone in the city," the general protested. "No, it won't. My teams have already installed portable fusion reactors throughout your underground complex. You'll have power for life support. Nothing more." The Queen hesitated. "Admiral, explain to me what you are doing. Your tactics make no sense." Admiral Chen wiped blood from her forehead. "Your Majesty, You've been fighting the Devourers like a traditional military force. You try to match their strength, counter their technology, outthink their strategies. That's exactly what they expect. On the display, a group of human ships suddenly broke formation and began flying directly into a Devourer construction facility. The Queen watched in horror as the ships exploded, taking the enemy installation with them. But we're not a traditional military, Chen continued. We're the product of thousands of years of irregular warfare. We learned to fight enemies that were bigger, stronger, and better equipped than us. We learned to win by being unpredictable. As if to prove her point, 3 human ships suddenly stopped firing their weapons entirely. Instead, they began broadcasting what sounded like music, loud, chaotic noise that made no sense. The Devourer ships targeting them seemed to hesitate, their formation wavering. "What is that sound?" the Queen asked. "Heavy metal music from the 21st century. Specifically, death metal. The mathematical patterns in the music are designed to be as chaotic as possible. The Devourer's predictive algorithms can't process it. They keep trying to find tactical meaning in random noise." The Queen watched as more human ships adopted impossible tactics. Some flew backwards while shooting forwards. Others deliberately damaged their own engines to create erratic flight patterns. One ship started spinning while firing in all directions. "This is madness," General Mordine breathed. "Exactly." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "That's the point. The Devourers are a machine intelligence, designed to fight logical opponents. They adapt by analyzing patterns and predicting behavior. But how do you predict madness? How do you adapt to chaos?" On the tactical display, the Queen saw something extraordinary happening. The perfectly organized Devourer fleet was falling apart. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems tried to process conflicting data. Entire formations ground to a halt as their command algorithms overloaded. "Phase 2, beginning now," Admiral Chen announced. Suddenly, human Marines began appearing inside Devourer ships. The Queen gasped as she watched the impossible sight on her sensors. "How are they getting inside enemy vessels?" "Boarding pods," Chen explained. "We fired them from ships that were pretending to be destroyed." The Devourers scanned the wreckage and decided it was harmless debris. They let our Marines drift right into their hulls. The Queen watched as tiny human figures moved through the massive enemy ships. They carried primitive weapons, projectile firearms that fired metal bullets. Against an enemy that had adapted to energy weapons, the simple chemistry of gunpowder was completely unexpected. But more importantly, the humans weren't trying to capture the ships or even destroy them cleanly. They were sabotaging everything they could find. "My Marines have one job," Admiral Chen explained. "Make things not work. They're not trying to understand Devourer technology. They're just breaking it, randomly, chaotically." The results were devastating. Devourer ships began malfunctioning in ways their repair systems couldn't fix. Lights flickered randomly. Navigation systems sent ships flying in circles. Weapon systems fired at their own fleet. "This is brilliant," the Queen whispered. "You're not defeating their adaptation. You're overloading it." "Exactly. Every time they try to counter one of our tactics, we switch to something completely different. They can't build a defense against pure randomness." A new alarm sounded in the bunker. A technician called out in panic. "Your Majesty, multiple Devourer ships are landing in the city above us. They're trying to break through to our location." Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Understood. It's time for the ground phase." Through the bunker's monitoring systems, the Queen watched human soldiers emerge from hidden positions throughout the ruined capital. They moved in small groups, carrying equipment that looked ancient compared to Valdrian weapons. The Devourers sent their ground units to meet them, sleek robot warriors with advanced energy shields and adaptive armor. The Queen expected to see the primitive humans slaughtered within minutes. Instead, she witnessed the most bizarre ground battle in galactic history. The humans ignored the enemy's advanced technology entirely. They used tactics that were older than spaceflight. They dug trenches with simple shovels. They set traps with basic explosives. They used mirrors to blind optical sensors with reflected sunlight. Most shocking of all, they used psychological warfare. "Attention Devourer units," a human soldier's voice broadcasted across all frequencies. "We know you're listening. We know you're trying to understand us. So let us tell you something about humans. We're really, really good at breaking things." The broadcast continued with detailed descriptions of every way humans had ever destroyed their own planet. Wars, pollution, weapons of mass destruction. A complete catalog of self-inflicted damage. To the Devourers, it sounded like a species admitting to being completely illogical and self-destructive. "You're making them afraid," the Queen realized. "Not afraid," Admiral Chen corrected, confused. "Their programming assumes all intelligent species follow logical self-preservation patterns. We're showing them a species that's willing to destroy everything, including itself, rather than lose. They can't process that kind of thinking." The battle continued for hours. Human losses were enormous, but every tactical exchange left the Devourers more confused and disorganized. Their adaptive systems began contradicting each other, creating feedback loops that spread through their entire network. As the Queen watched, she began to understand what the humans had done. They hadn't tried to match the Devourers' technological superiority. Instead, they had turned the enemy's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and learn, into a weakness by feeding them information that made no logical sense. "Admiral," she said quietly, "how did your species develop these tactics?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Your Majesty, most species achieve peace before they achieve spaceflight. They develop advanced technology through cooperation and logic. But humans achieved spaceflight specifically to continue fighting on a larger scale." The Queen stared at her. "You mean, every human military doctrine is designed around one simple principle: how to defeat an enemy that's better than you in every measurable way. We've been the underdog in every fight we've ever had. We learned to win through chaos, sacrifice, and pure stubborn refusal to give up." On the display, the last Devourer construction facility exploded in a brilliant flash. The enemy fleet, now completely disorganized, began to retreat from the planet. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. "Phase 3, she announced. "Time to take the fight to them." Queen Zarthela emerged from the underground bunker for the first time in a week. The air above ground tasted of smoke and metal, but it was clean air. The sky, which had been black with Devourer ships for days, now showed patches of blue between drifting clouds. Around her, the capital city lay in ruins. Crystal towers had been reduced to scattered fragments. The beautiful gardens were gone, replaced by blast craters and twisted metal. But her people were alive. Valdrian civilians were already beginning to clear debris and search for survivors. Admiral Chen stood nearby, looking up at the sky with satisfaction. Her uniform was torn and dirty, and her left arm was in a medical sling, but she was smiling the same strange expression the Queen was beginning to understand. "It's over?" the Queen asked. "It's over," Chen confirmed. "The last Devourer ship jumped to hyperspace 6 hours ago. They won't be back." The Queen could hardly believe it. "But how? Your final attack? I don't understand what happened." Admiral Chen gestured to one of her officers, a young man with bright eyes and excited energy. "Lieutenant Morrison here can explain it better than I can. He's our cyber warfare specialist." The young human stepped forward and bowed awkwardly. "Your Majesty, we did something the Devourers never expected. We gave them exactly what they wanted." "I don't understand." Lieutenant Morrison pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display. It showed the internal structure of a Devourer ship's computer system. "The Devourers learn by absorbing and analyzing information," he explained. "So, we let them absorb our computer systems. We actually helped them break into our ship's computers." General Mordin, who had joined them on the surface, looked confused. "You gave them access to your military databases?" "Not exactly," Morrison grinned. "We gave them access to something much more dangerous. We gave them access to human internet culture." The hologram changed to show streams of data flowing between human ships and Devourer vessels. But as the Queen looked closer, she realized the data wasn't military information. "Is that entertainment?" she asked in disbelief. Memes, cat videos, social media arguments, conspiracy theories, comedy shows, music, art, literature, and about 10,000 years of human creativity and chaos, Morrison said proudly. We uploaded the entire cultural database of human civilization directly into their collective consciousness. Admiral Chen laughed at the Queen's expression. Your Majesty. Imagine being a perfect logical machine designed to process and understand all information efficiently. Now imagine trying to understand why humans think pictures of cats with funny captions are hilarious. Or trying to find tactical meaning in a song about losing your truck and your dog. The Queen stared at the data streams. You destroyed them with humor? 1. We destroyed them with everything that makes humans human, Chen corrected. The devourers were designed to find patterns and adapt to them. But human culture isn't based on logical patterns. It's based on creativity, emotion, irrationality, and the beautiful chaos of consciousness that doesn't follow rules. Lieutenant Morrison nodded enthusiastically. We gave them access to philosophical debates where humans argue about whether reality exists. We showed them art that's designed to make no sense. We let them analyze love songs and try to find military applications for poetry. The Queen watched as the hologram showed the internal collapse of the Devourer network. Their unified intelligence had fragmented into millions of competing subroutines, each trying to process and categorize human culture according to logical principles. They couldn't handle it, Chen said simply. Their collective intelligence broke down when it tried to understand why humans create art just for the sake of creating it. They couldn't process the concept of sacrificing logical efficiency for emotional satisfaction. But the final battle, the Queen pressed. They were retreating, but then they all stopped and began attacking each other. Admiral Chen's smile turned grim. That was the virus Lieutenant Morrison created. Not a computer virus, a logical virus. We convinced their collective intelligence that the most efficient way to eliminate chaos was to eliminate everything that had been exposed to chaos, including themselves. The Queen felt a chill run down her spine. You made them destroy themselves. We made them choose between accepting chaos or maintaining logical purity, Morrison explained. For a machine intelligence designed around perfect efficiency, that's an impossible choice. So they chose to eliminate the problem by eliminating themselves. The Queen walked to the edge of what had once been her royal garden. In the distance, she could see human rescue teams working alongside Valdrian civilians, pulling survivors from the rubble. The humans worked with the same chaotic energy they brought to battle, not following any logical plan, but somehow getting everything done through pure determination. Admiral Chen, she said quietly, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. No debt, Your Majesty. This is what we do. But why? Why risk your lives for strangers you had never met? Admiral Chen looked thoughtful. Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone asked for help and we were able to give it. Because... She paused, searching for words. Because... That's what makes us human. The Queen turned to face her fully. Your species confuses me, Admiral. You have technology that could make you wealthy and powerful. You have weapons that could conquer star systems, but instead of building an empire, you spend your resources saving strangers. Building empires is logical, Chen replied. Saving people who can't save themselves is human. General Mordine approached the group, carrying a data tablet. Your Majesty. Our scientists have been analyzing the human technology. These people could have dominated our sector of space easily. Their weapons are more advanced than we realized. Their ships are much faster than they appeared. Their military organization is incredibly efficient, despite appearing chaotic. Admiral Chen shrugged. We've learned to hide our capabilities. It's usually safer if potential enemies underestimate us. The Queen felt a new understanding dawn. You let us think you were primitive. We let everyone think we're primitive, Chen confirmed. It's easier to help people when they don't see you as a threat. It's easier to live in peace when others don't think you're worth conquering. The Queen looked around at the destruction and reconstruction happening simultaneously around her. Human and Valdrian work teams were already beginning to plan the rebuilding of the city, not as it was before, but as something new. A combination of Valdrian elegance and human practicality. "What will you do now?" she asked. Admiral Chen looked up at the clear sky. "Go home, I guess. Help other people who need help. Try to make the galaxy a little bit safer for everyone. And if someone threatens humanity itself?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Then they'll discover that everything you just saw was us holding back. Humans are very good at ending threats, Your Majesty. We just prefer not to unless we have to." The Queen understood now. The galaxy had been cataloging species by their technology, their logic, their efficiency, but they had missed the most dangerous intelligence in space. A species that had weaponized chaos itself, that could defeat any logical enemy by being magnificently, beautifully, dangerously unpredictable. As the human ships prepared to leave, Queen Zarthala stood in the ruins of her palace and watched them go. Her empire would survive because of these strange, wonderful, impossible creatures who had turned madness into a victory. In her pocket, she carried a small device Lieutenant Morrison had given her, a collection of human cultural artifacts. "For when you need to remember and divide," he had said with that strange human smile, "that sometimes the best solution is the one that makes no sense at all." The Queen looked up at the stars and smiled herself. The galaxy would never be the same,